Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Wundertalks, where we ask questions no one's asking about the Pakistani advertising, marketing, and the creative production industries. In Wundertalks, we have with us today an IBA graduate with over 15 years of international experience in the FMCG markets. Sheikh Adil Hussain, a true Pakistani, has served in the MENA and the European markets until 2017. Currently, he is heading the marketing department of a local culinary brand. So Adil, welcome to Wundertalks.
Thank you.
Our first question for you today: how does it feel to be back in Pakistan?
Amazing. It's something that I had always planned to do, and it's like a dream come true. So happened later than I would have liked it to.
Yeah.
But better late than never, as they say.
Yeah. So welcome back to Pakistan.
Thank
and
you.
Congratulations. I've heard you guys just picked up your PASS award, where you're currently heading the marketing department.
Yeah.
So many congratulations on that. So my first question to you is, what are the most fundamental differences between the local and the international corporate cultures?
Well, fairly evident answer would be that the formal and informal difference that you might feel. However, the culture is not defined by the geographies, it's more defined by the people. Multinationals have their own cultures because they've got a defined history, and then it's passed on to the senior management, who pass it down to the people at the front line. And it's a bit more organized, it's a bit more structured, they have their processes. So everyone comes up learning those same ropes. Coming back to Pakistan, I spent the first year in a venture of my own, and that was a completely different experience in terms of setting up a company by yourself, going out and meeting people for the first time. So the general business culture is different in terms of how you respect time, how you respect space, keeping appointments, keeping meeting calendars, and then following them as well. So that kind of discipline is quite fluid back here at home, whereas it's much more stringent in maybe the European markets or in the Americas. Having said that, in the Middle East as well, it was quite fluid because the Arab culture is quite similar. So it's a mixture of informal and formal, structured and unstructured. It just depends where you are at the time. When I said culture is also driven by people, even at the multinationals, if you've got more of the South Asian or the Asian or Arab management in terms of the people, then that local flair is going to come in, even though they've been taught the same ropes by the senior managements of those multinationals. So it's a mixture. Having said that, yes, the generalizations stand true. So if you're at P&G, it's more of an American culture, and P&G has its own 160-year history and way of doing things. They promote from within. Everyone gets proctorized, so they don't hire from outside at senior positions. So they've really maintained a strong cultural identity, and you can't tell a P&G ABM apart from Pakistan to Mexico to Europe and so on. Similarly, then at Henkel, it was more of a European culture, so more formal, more hierarchical. You have to follow the hierarchy very strictly, give that respect, so no first names. And really keep a stringent meeting calendar and keep your timings and be punctual. I mean, we had to take lunch appointments sometimes 3 to 4 weeks in advance if you just wanted to have lunch with someone.
Just for lunch?
Just for lunch. Thank God it didn't spill over for coffee, but just for lunch. And then obviously, since I've been back, it's a lot more fluid, let's say.
If you have international experience, and normally that's considered a strength, coming back to your own country, but do you think that is true? That was true in your case, or did you face challenges again adapting to the local norms of work ethics, for example?
Any experience in general should be a learning experience, and it helps you in the long term. Having international experience over here helps on the technical side. So the technical side of marketing, you can apply a lot of the international learnings anywhere, wherever you go, and locally it holds true as well. When it comes to the people management part, that also helps because you've dealt with multiple nationalities, multiple types of personalities, multiple situations, and especially when you've been up and down the hierarchy, you know different types of challenges that you will face. So applying that to the different cases here, you just get that different lens and perspective once you've been out and about. Then there's a perspective of how you're treating your management, and that goes back to the culture part that we were also talking about. So the more professional it is, the more learnings you can apply from outside. Otherwise,
so your strengths, international experience was appreciated rather than frowned upon. Is that what you're saying?
So appreciated is different versus helping you being able to tackle everything that you're being faced with here. So appreciated, I don't know, maybe yes or no, but having equipped me better to face the challenges that I did, yes, for sure. I will, however, add a caveat that if you stayed out too long from the Pakistani market, then that does become a handicap.
Okay.
Especially if you haven't stayed in touch with your network and you haven't kept up with the times. It's just that the Pakistani industry works in such a way that you really need to have your contacts in, and you need to know the ins and outs. You need to know the people, to get things done in a smoother way, or let's say in a better way. So that might hurt initially, but I mean, if you're a good networker and you've
normally
spent that
people
much
think
time,
it's the other way around, to keep in touch with what's going on internationally for people who are aspiring to go out of Pakistan, for example.
No, true, but that remains true anywhere. So if you're from the US and you spend your time in Europe or Asia, and then you come back after 10 years, you'll probably find it a bit difficult to settle back in. But you should be able to do it easily if you have worked initially in your home country, because you at least should know the basics if they haven't changed drastically, and they don't so much. Okay. The people change, the faces change, but the basics and the fundamentals remain the same. I mean, when I was making copies here in Pakistan before I left, the technology was completely different, and ABM was expected to know the camera types and the lightings and those kinds of things.
Oh, really? Okay.
Because you get into the details. And when I came back, all of those equipments are now obsolete, and I don't know the new lingo, or I didn't know the new lingo, and then you have to catch up really fast. So those kinds of things. It's very minor, but those kinds of things.
Okay. So coming from an international background, and these days you're heading the marketing department for a local family-owned business. What are the differences? What's a family-owned business, and is it any better in, let's say, again, work ethics, corporate culture, language, compared to an international MNC, for example?
So again, maybe the easy answer is that you're comparing maybe the prehistoric times to a modern era.
Okay.
But that's not true for most of the local businesses. I feel most of our big local brands and local businesses, family-run businesses, have evolved very well, and they have grown into a sort of corporate culture. Most of them have brought in professionals from multinationals, big name multinationals, and they've made these professional management committee teams and lead teams, as you call them, and they're trying to bring in that same professional culture down the ranks.
Okay.
So that remains true everywhere. However, the strong presence of the family still remains in most of these businesses, and that's where the tricky part comes in. The positive thing is that they are looking to improve. They are looking to bring in best practices across the value chain, across the whole organization. And the faster that happens and the more that happens, the better. So those kinds of things are happening. The change at different levels would be different. So if you're coming in at really the management committee level or at the C-suite level, then your skill set required is more how you manage the family, because they're the main stakeholders. In a multinational, that might be how you manage the region, how you manage the global headquarters, how you manage the board, those kinds of things. So at the end, it's stakeholders, and here the stakeholders are different. Maybe in a multinational, the stakeholders are different.
So on innovation, we've seen in the past that local markets and local brands have innovated. For example, in the case of Commander Safeguard, being an MNC brand, a product, but completely localized for the local market. We don't see that anymore, and it's been a long time. I guess Commander Safeguard was the last one. There's not been such innovative marketing and planning towards any other MNC brands or even local brands. So what do you think are the reasons behind the lack of innovation?
Difficult to point out.
Is it budgets, for example? We know MNCs have shrunk their budgets.
Not really. I mean, even now you would see big rollouts behind conceptual launches and good IMC integrated marketing programs and so on. So you still see the big bucks being doled out on campaigns. what I feel is, and what I got from talking to a few people in the media associated with channels and so on, is people are now just running behind the easy win or the quick fix, and where the eyeballs are. No one's willing to sort of invest and build something, or build a brand asset, or build a new thing from scratch and then watch it grow. So everyone wants instant results. Everyone wants to bank on something that will work from day one. So maybe a recent example is Coke Studio, which I believe maybe the first 3 years probably didn't make a dent, and then suddenly kicked off, and people went back and bought the first 2 albums and started listening and catching up, but they stuck with it, right? So they stuck with it for the 4th year, the 5th year, and then it sort of really became big.
So there's a natural evolution to the
exactly, so that kind of thing. I mean, watching something grow over a span of 4, 5, 6, 10 years is something that's painstaking, and really it needs to be done in terms of an effort to make a brand, to build a brand asset, and to reach a success of Commander Safeguard. Now, sometimes you may get lucky with something like a Commander Safeguard, which does work from day one. But after that, it's not always the case. And after that, you see that till now, you've got these Me Toos that are coming in from brands like Dettol and Lifebuoy.
Many people call it genius, Commander Safeguard. I mean, taking a product from the adults category and putting it into the hands of children, for example.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, those kinds of things come from a little bit of understanding of the category, of the way it's used, the usage, and looking at your numbers a little bit. So you're looking at who the key influencers are, who the key users are, and then you might change your strategy. I mean, maybe in this day and age, it might not even work, because now you've got those rules about marketing to kids and underage marketing and influencing.
Maybe it was easier back then.
So maybe it was a little easier back then. Maybe it was a little easier in Pakistan, because maybe even at that time it might not have been possible in the Western world. So those kinds of things. So we know that anything with kids always clicks, and it will work, because they have this natural energy to themselves and to everything that they do. So those kinds of things exist. But yeah, I believe the efforts are not being made in terms of building something over time, and everyone's looking for an instant win, and that's probably the reason why you're not seeing innovations like Commander Safeguard now.
What do you think that brands can do, international brands can do better to capture locals, sentiments? As compared to what they've done previously? Yeah,
so I think in this specific case of Lipton and Tapal, and maybe some other where local brands have not allowed the big giant international competitors to make a stake, to make a claim over here, has been down to the product itself. Okay. So Lipton could not crack, in my view, the taste palette for Pakistani tea drinkers.
Because it's so varied?
Because it was different, right? Or maybe they weren't able to get that read on them. So it's unfair to say that Lipton didn't dole out the bucks. They really invested. They did quite a few marketing campaigns.
They have deep pockets.
Exactly. So they did throw money around, but at the end of the day, if the tea is not liked by the Pakistani consumer, they're not going to drink it, and they're not going to come back. An average male is drinking 5 cups of tea. 50% of your population is males. Forget about the females as well. So there's a lot of tea consumption in Pakistan, right? And if you can't make a space for yourself with those kinds of budgets, then there's something wrong with the product.
Although the pie is pretty big, as we know. I mean, there's the northern side, there's the eastern side, there's the southern side, with different multiple taste palettes. So still, they haven't even put a dent.
And like I said, the local companies have got their do the innovation fast. So they've got their finger on the pulse of the consumer. So when you look at Tapal's range, they've got the different blends for all the kinds of taste palettes across Pakistan, north to south. And it's unfair to say that it's because of that they're big, because Tapal Danedar in its own is their biggest brand, and it's got national acceptance, not to mention the international acceptance as well. So I think in that case specifically, it was down to the product. And the advice to the international brands is just this: make sure you've got a winning product. unless your product is winning, then you will not be able to crack the market. Not another example, which is not an international versus local, but international versus international, is Maggi and Knorr noodles. I mean, Maggi was the market leader
Maggi
at
was
one
the name
point
once,
in time.
yes.
Yeah, and now it's like a fading second or third player in the market, and Knorr is virtual market monopoly with 80% share.
So what would you say Knorr did different to Maggi, for example?
So I would like to think that the taste was definitely something that they worked on. So they got the taste right, getting those flavors of the chatpatas and the masalas or whatever. So they got those right, and I think obviously the marketing strategy, clinging on, staying consistent with the same kind of jingles, the same kind of marketing positioning. And building that kind of bond with the consumers is something that they did right. I believe Maggi went wrong structurally somewhere, and then obviously didn't even put in the same amounts of money. I mean, if you just go across the border in India, they're one of the biggest brands around, and it's driving Nestle over there. So it's probably one of their few markets where they failed with this brand.
Okay.
Yeah.
Marketing philosophies. We see a lot of case studies being studied at, for example, IBA. You're a graduate. You've done a lot of marketing philosophies and about processes and such. But most of these are, almost all of them are international, by international writers and economists and marketers. Why do you think that we've had no marketing philosophers, for example, from Pakistan?
You mean like a Kotler or something?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I don't want to name drop, but yeah, if you will. And do you see that happening sometime soon because of how the world is coming together, rather than, because obviously 20 years ago the world was a different place. Yeah. We didn't even have internet. Yeah. So, but do you think that's going to change in the coming years?
So yeah, the part of the answer is there. So because of all the social media and the outlets available now, so everybody does have an outlet now. So you can pen a blog and you can pen your thoughts and sort of put it out there. A few thousand people read you, and suddenly you're a philosopher, like you put it. So there are, I think, already a few names out there. Maybe they don't have a national following and they don't have international following, but a few names are out there.
Okay.
So some who've made their name working in big name companies have taught a little, so they've got that university following as well. So those people are around. Then you've got the hotshot marketeers that you hear about in the big multinationals in Pakistan, and we love building people up as well. So they are there, and because they are in this day and age and they have that outlet, so they will be able to do it. Now whether they do it or not is up to them, and maybe we're not such great self-marketeers as well. So we don't know how to market ourselves and ourselves as a brand.
Okay.
So that's probably missing, because you're not thinking about that. However, within the industry, you will be aware of, there was an iconic guy in P&G who did this and this. Today he's there. There was this guy at Reckitt, he's been there for 10-15 years and he's done this. There's another guy over at Pepsi, there's another guy over at Coke. So you'll have those kind of stories and you'll know those names within the industry and the fraternity, but they're probably not going around and talking philosophy, and there's no platform like that available probably in Pakistan as well. PAS tried to do it, MAP tried to do it, but I don't think they've been that great at it, to be very honest. Yeah, I mean, that's it, and nobody's come together and written a textbook, so that always helps, like Kotler did or Keller did, and that makes you a certified sort of marketing.
So the space is open for writers to come in and make a name for themselves. So can we expect something from you, from Sheikh Adil Hussain?
No, I tried my hand at writing, and
okay.
it's a bit too cumbersome a job.
So the writing didn't like you, or you didn't agree with your writing?
No, I mean I did teach a semester at IB as well.
Oh, okay,
so I really enjoyed that experience, and the methodology was also borrowed from actually another friend of mine, and it was more that we try to impart what happens in the real world versus following a textbook completely. I mean, now that I read the same textbooks and the way they explain simple concepts in marketing just confuses me even more. So you don't need so many jargons to explain a concept. You can just sort of, use common language and normal layman terms and just try to explain what the concept means. So I think textbooks overcomplicate issues. It's just about maybe
they're textbooks.
Yeah, taking live case studies and taking those forward, speaking from experience, and others not taking it in the wrong way. So even if someone has said something which might be factually wrong, but they're saying it from a perspective and from their own opinion, then you just sort of air that, and that should be the end of it. And if the person who originated the opinion, if they're also smart enough, they'll accept it and they'll say, yeah, okay, fair enough. And then in that case, this is what I think. And you keep the dialogue going. So and you extract the learning from that.
So more human conversation.
Yeah, versus you start saying, no, you're completely wrong. So and that's the trap we fall under over here. So instead of building against something, it's more about bringing that person down, and I'm better and he's better.
So if you want to say something great, you have to say it from the heart, rather than just make it very formulaic and
I mean, great or not, I don't know, but at least it'll be something that you believe in, or it's coming from your perspective, right? So and I believe when you're doing that, then there will be learning. So there will be learning, and it might spark a discourse, it might spark dialogue, and then
might inspire someone to write a book.
Yeah, if that's the outcome.
Okay, so Sheikh Adil Hussain, again, thank you very much for being on Wonder Talks.
Yeah, it's
been great having you.
Thank you.
Long time coming.
Yeah.
And thanks again. I know you just got back from work, so thank you.
No worries, thanks.
And that was Sheikh Adil Hussain talking to us on Wonder Talks. For more talks, stay tuned.